Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Monday, October 7th, 2024 meeting of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Here.
Mrs. Denny.
Here.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
Mrs. Casper,
Here.
Dr. Kennedy,
Here.
Mr. McCray,
Here.
Mr. McCree,
Here.
Mr. Schneider,
Here.
Mrs. Cocker.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag. Okay, good evening. So tonight, our first communication piece is a very special one. We have with us a large number of our support staff, and we are going to recognize them for their years of service, and especially for the people in the room who offer support to a variety of staff and students all day long. The students and teachers and the building itself would not function without you, and it's very obvious when you are not there. So we appreciate you, and we are very thankful that you are here and you've committed so much time to Wilson. And I will pass it on to Dr. Schrickett to kind of go over the order of this, because there are so many of you, as well as, I'm sure, his own words.
Yeah, thank you, President Cocker, and thank you so much to all of our teammates that chose to come here tonight. It's definitely not lost on us that there's a variety of things you could be doing, but you chose to come back to work. So as President Cocker said, this is an opportunity for us to just take a couple minutes and celebrate you. Celebrate your contributions to the district, and especially the kids that we serve. As you know, in our vision, we're very intentional about trying to create a place where people love to work. And by evidence of your years of service, I believe ranging from 10 to 28 years of service here in the Wilson School District, you are contributing to that vision. You're contributing to creating that place where each of you hopefully are having a positive experience, and even more importantly, you're contributing to the side of the vision that is creating a place where students love to learn. So this is an opportunity for us once a year to bring it together. The way the process works, for those of you that are newer to this process, is for many years at the Wilson School District, we had a tradition of handing out pins. And the pins were a symbol of your dedication and commitment to the school district. About 3 years ago or so, we brought a group of individuals together, and one of the things that we heard in our focus groups was something we could do immediately to remind people of their value and to symbolize it would be to start this back up again. So I believe it was a year or two ago, perhaps maybe 2 years now, perhaps this is the third year, where we brought this back. So at 10 years, and at certain intervals, I believe on the 5-year intervals, 10, 15, 20, 25, and soon to be 30 for some of you, you will receive a pin. And on the pin, there's a bulldog, of course, and then below the bulldog is in gold lettering 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and so forth. We're very fortunate to have some folks here tonight that are in between those bands, but chose to be here as well. 21 years of service, 22, 26, 26, and 28. So you will not receive a pin. You have to make it to the next 5-year mark. But we do very much appreciate you coming here tonight and just to be honored and celebrated by the board. So I'm going to do my best. Thankfully, Tammy, your name is very easy for me, and I will not mess that up. The rules of kind of the procedure here is going to be this. I'm going to call your name. You're going to come up and you're going to start here with Mr. McCree, and you're going to shake his hand. You're going to work your way around the entire board, and then I'm going to ask you to go over to this corner of the boardroom where you're going to stage, and we're going to do a nice photo. Karen Troutman is going to kind of organize that over there. And make sure that we have a good photo of everyone just to again archive and celebrate this moment. Okay? So I apologize. I will not be shaking your hand, but I will hand you your card, hopefully, if this works when you get to me. All right? All right, Tammy Campbell, 28 years of service. Paul Bollinger, 26 years of service. Joanne Schlichter, 26 years of service. Thank you, Tammy. And recently retired. Welcome back, Joanne. Sandra Wedlock, 25 years of service. Joanne, here you go. Marianne Connor, 22 years of service.
Thank you.
Norman Jacobs, 21 years of service. Oh, here you go. Sorry. I'm sorry. Joya Oshley, 21 years of service. Congratulations, Norm. Thank you. Corleen Laura, 21 years of service. Joelle Moss, 20 years of service. Deb Allison, 15 years of service. There you go. Tammy Bernardo, 10 years of service. Congratulations. Donna Miller, 10 years of service to the Wilson School District. Ooh. Deb? You bet. Yes. Tammy? Kimberly Rice, 10 years of service. Josie Sensnig, 10 years of service. Thank you. Melissa Small, 10 years of service. Richard Strasiak, 10 years of service. And Pam Van Ostenbridge, 10 years of service. Congratulations, Melissa. Thank you. Richard, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Pam. 10 years.
Thank you.
Wear it proudly.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's not good. Okay. And then I'll introduce Sean. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you.
A huge thank you again for your contribution to Wilson. A lot of familiar faces. Have a great night, guys. Thank you. Thank you. And the next communication piece, I'll turn over to Dr. Trickett on updates on our Wilson Southern Middle School renovations.
Thank you, President Cocker. I'm very excited tonight to introduce Sean Dowdy, again from Crabtree, Rohrbaugh and Associates. The board and our community has gotten to know Sean well over the last few years, as he's been our lead architect with our High School Performing Arts Center, which is well under construction. He's also been serving the organization with regard to designing and planning for the Southern Middle School project as well as Lincoln Park project. Tonight we have for the board's consideration as well as the community update where we are with specifically the Southern Middle School project. So this is an interesting time for our school district where we will split these two projects off. For the better part of a year or more, we've kind of kept them together. But tonight, Sean's presentation will focus almost exclusively on the Southern Middle School project. With the preparation for the board and to give the board 2 weeks of conversation amongst each other and processing, regarding the next decision point to move to the construction document phase of this project, again, which will take place in our next board meeting. So I introduce Mr. Sean Dowdy from Crabtree.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you again. I know you got a busy agenda tonight. I'm going to try to keep it moving, as I always do. So I'll go over really quickly for you things that we've done over the past several months that advanced the project forward. We'll show you what some of the updates to the design have been, both from the, well, not so much from the floor plans. They've largely stayed pretty much the same as they've been since the spring, but more so from an exterior and interior design standpoint. So we got some renderings to share with you tonight that we're excited to show. We'll talk about some discussions that we've had recently about fully sprinklering Wilson Southern Middle School. And I'll tell you why we're thinking about that, what that means for the budget, and why we see it as an extreme benefit to you. And then I'll briefly go over how we're anticipating the project being phased out, since it is an occupied building during construction. Brief update on cost estimate, upcoming tasks, and timeline looking forward, and we can open it up for discussion thereafter, but please don't hesitate to interrupt if you have questions. A lot has happened over the past several months. We've held our first round of interior faculty meetings so that our interior designer and myself as well can have a good understanding of what the faculty is expecting in their spaces that are being renovated or brand new spaces altogether. We looked at the interior wayfinding scheme throughout the building, and we developed an interesting concept that we're excited to show you tonight. So we'll get into that then tonight too. Land development submissions have been put in, particularly to Spring Township and Berks County Conservation District. It's the Berks County Conservation District, you'll recall, that is kind of the critical path to the project moving forward, because it requires an individual NPDES permit due to the watershed that that area discharges to. We do have the initial comments from the administrative review back from them, and we're working through them. And then we've also gotten some feedback from Spring Township that I'll go over with you momentarily too. So we've held some of those meetings with Spring Township Planning Commission. Biggest conversation with them for this project is largely parking. So I'll tell you where we're landing at with that. Initial geotechnical work was conducted, the borings, on the site of the additions, and you'll be happy to know that unlike Lincoln Park, the borings have been found to be much more suitable. So we're not facing any challenging building support issues on site. Of course, our team was throughout the building a lot over the summer, and will continue to be over the coming weeks and months, doing building surveys, making sure we have the best understanding of the existing conditions as possible. And then we've also engaged Food Facilities Concepts to put together the design package for the new food court. You'll recall that we are making improvements to the servery area, previously more elementary style. Now it's going to be more food court style, more toward the high school model. And then, as always, we're continuing our project development with our drawings in-house, our coordination with our consultants, and then ongoing communication with the administrative team here. So you recall the site plan. This is very similar to what I've presented in the past. There is one key difference to the site plan, and that's in the bottom left corner, which is at the intersection of Iroquois Avenue and Windmill Road. You'll see there's a darker section of parking lot there. What that is an extension to the existing parking lot to satisfy the Planning Commission. They've expressed clearly to us that there are ongoing concerns about the amount of parking, especially when like the athletic fields in the back are full and events after hours, things like that. So they've asked for us to include some additional parking to accommodate those needs. So what we're doing is extending the existing parking lot kind of by one bay over. So this is about 20 spaces, and that will be a pervious paved parking lot, presuming that when the geotechnical goes back out and does some test pits, that they find that the water can infiltrate that satisfactorily. The reason that's important is, as a cost-saving measure, we would not have to add additional stormwater structures underground to do that. So we're trying to keep this as cost-effective as possible. I will say that this expanded parking lot area does have an impact on our schedule with Berks County Conservation District. So we need that, those test pits to be done very soon so that we can have the plans updated and sent back to Conservation District.
And that is before the board tonight.
Yes, and that is one of the motions that you'll take tonight. Thank you, Dr. Trichet. So looking at the building itself, this is the classroom wing on the first floor, largely similar to what we presented before. So in the top left corner is where the addition is going. That's largely science labs, but there's also one classroom on the first floor and two on the second floor, as well as one special education classroom. But throughout the project, our goals in this building are to address the HVAC system, which is overdue for replacement, try to help with the corridor flow, especially throughout the classroom wing areas, science labs, updating them, bringing them as much on par with what's at West Middle School as already. And then using that additional space to right-size the other spaces that are existing, getting classes out of undersized spaces into more suitable spaces, classroom-sized, for their educational programs. The cafeteria, I've already talked about. We're making improvements there. We're also expanding it. And then trying to bring in as much daylight as possible. So we're taking measures where we can to do that, noting that there are some spaces in the existing building that are landlocked. There's not a whole lot we can do about those. There's a couple classrooms you can see below the library space, as an example. And then upstairs, kind of a similar arrangement. Again, addition has more science labs and classrooms. Upstairs will be around the bottom end, the 8th grade, and then on the top end of the existing part, 7th grade, which actually splits both floors. So we're kind of developing grade houses or grade areas, and all of them will have kind of an opened up corridor space, and you'll see how we're going to be treating those with some of the images ahead. And then looking at the more public area of the first floor. So at the bottom, you can see all those pink areas. That's the new addition for the administrative suite. So we have the building admin, guidance, special ed offices all in that area. And then they also, in a change that we made probably early summer, we've extended that slightly so it can connect through to the nurse, which is a great feature. So all of those spaces can effectively be en suite. You'll see that we brought the choral and music classrooms right across from the band room and orchestra classroom, right by the auditorium, which will be great for kind of green spaces for performances. So a lot of adjacency features there. And then, of course, you can see to the right of the auditorium the expanded cafeteria. So we're taking the spaces that used to be special education offices and an LGI to expand the cafeteria outward. We're going to be doing as much as we can to get as much daylight as possible into those spaces, too. So you might recall this is the way that we start to develop the cost estimate for the project is by how much work we're doing in all the different areas. So we know that we're doing an HVAC replacement throughout the entire building. So that includes with it taking down the ceilings, replacing them, putting up new lighting. Electrical work above ceilings will have to be plenum rated cabling, so we're making those changes too. That's a requirement if we're not doing ductwork, return air ductwork above the ceilings. which we are not because of limited space above the ceilings. So we're doing that everywhere, and then from there, the yellow spaces include that HVAC replacement, and then some finish work, new painting, new ceilings, new flooring, and then escalating that from there. The orange spaces are, rooms staying as is, but otherwise, replacing all of the casework, equipment in them, and then the red spaces are spaces that are being totally reconfigured. We're tearing down walls and reconfiguring the building in those areas to suit the new program. Of course, the blue areas are the additions. So that's how we can start to figure out how much this project is going to cost. So this is the first floor, and then the second floor you can see here as well. So some key areas in the second floor, we're doing all new equipment and casework in the FCS classrooms. Of course, the mechanical rooms are going to be very heavily involved, do the HVAC replacements throughout, and then we're also making wholesale upgrades to all the toilet rooms. So the building's going to look really fresh after this is all said and done. So what's it going to look like? Starting with the exterior, of course, we're looking at the new administrative wing addition and the new entrance. So we're giving it a broad canopy outward from the entry doors, and then you can see we're kind of utilizing similar materials and colors that are already found throughout the building. So for instance, on the Southern Middle School side, you can see the red brick and then also the existing concrete areas under the windows. If you were to look over to the Cornwall Terrace side, they already have a mix of the red brick and also a beige brick. So we're kind of bringing that more holistic look of those materials all the way around the building. Here's a closer look at the main entrance and the entrance canopy. So we envision that, especially during the evening hours, as the daylight goes, you'll be able to see through, and we'll have striking like red walls with bulldog behind that glass, to show it off with some lighting inside of there. It'll be really a striking feature. New entrance point into the middle school. Here's another view from it from another angle. And then the classroom wing addition around on Windmill is looking like this. So it's also kind of playing off the language of the existing Southern Middle School, but with new, like bigger windows, things like that into the science labs. So again, utilizing similar materials, as much window space as possible as well. Inside, this is when you come inside, this used to be the locker commons, so this is kind of a student commons space. The existing structure is relatively low, but I think by having as much glimpses of daylight as possible, and then also bringing in what's called solar tubes. I don't know if you've ever seen them before, but in a similar way that a skylight is an opening in the roof, it's like that but smaller, and then there's a tube from that opening that goes down to the ceiling level, and the daylight's just bouncing through reflected surfaces in those tubes to get to the ceiling level and distribute it outward. So it's natural light coming to the ceiling. So we could do that here, emphasizing the structure with the kind of red enclosed beams and the gray soffits on the either side. Mix of different seating types and writing surfaces throughout. Should be a lively space for open engagement and discussion. So this is the entrance to the cafeteria. So at the time that this was developed, the assumption was that we were not going to be adding any sprinklers to the building. That assumption, as I alluded to earlier, has shifted. What this can look like after sprinklering it is basically a lot more glass, which is great. So we can do, if you think about it, just to the right off the slide is where the entrance is to, you might call it the events entrance, on the Iroquois side of the building. We can borrow a lot of that daylight coming through here and open up a lot more glass and take that into the cafeteria much more efficiently. So if you were to consider this and all those windows on kind of the hallway side leading back toward the gymnasium, those can be bigger. I'll get into that in a moment. But you'll see we're using this kind of red gateway feature throughout the building as part of our wayfinding tactic. So here, of course, is the cafeteria entrance, and then when you walk inside, this is the higher part. This is the existing cafeteria. So you can see some signage, Bulldogs Cafe over the entrances to the new food court, which would have roll-down gates to close them off in the evening hours. Accentuating the space with some specialty lighting and again some solar tubes for natural daylights as well. Mix of different seating types for the students to use during their lunch hour. The next slide kind of backs away from that. This is the extension of the cafeteria, so you can see the entrance to the cafeteria. All of this can be opened up more with more glazing and more bar natural daylight by selecting to sprinkler this. So this is what we're proposing for auditorium entrances to kind of bring some more attention to the entrances on each side of the auditorium, utilizing the Wilson logos and naming on the kind of portal feature as well. Similar at the gymnasium, this one being more an athletic space, so maybe electing to use the Bulldog logo itself at this location. This is over by the library, so we're opening up the area a little bit, and we have an opportunity for a little seating alcove, again utilizing the Wilson branding within the kind of portal feature. But the library is a really unique thing, I think, how it's a double height space and you can see it from the corridors on the first and second floor. So by having, logos and some broad, bold colors inside, I think will be really striking when you're walking around there. So you'll recall that we are shifting where the corridors go through the building on the classroom wing side on the first floor. And the library is 3 feet down from the rest of the floor level. So at the ramp area, when we're reconfiguring that, giving that a lot of that Wilson branding, Wilson School District, Southern Bulldogs, a lot of that branding and using that as a wayfinding tactic. And then as you go around, the ramp would be to the right in this photograph or in this rendering, so this would be the library entrance. And then inside the library, again, you can see we're proposing having the more striking lighting in this specialty space, and then continuing to use the branding and accentuating the structure. And then this is at the other end where it connects to the new addition. Now I will say really quick that one thing that we're working through here is how to integrate a new elevator into the new addition rather than spending the money on upgrading the existing elevator, which is quite small. We had the elevator rep out to look at it, and they said, yes, you can replace the existing elevator, but it would be a full-fledged replacement, and it's not going to get much bigger. It is a pretty small elevator by today's standards. For the same price, and we've already had it budgeted into this project, might as well try to find a home for a brand new elevator that's appropriately sized for today's standards. It would be much better for wheelchair use and other reasons too. Even your day-to-day logistics or over the summer when you're moving things, bigger elevator would be helpful. So we're working through finding a home for that in the new addition. We might be able to eliminate the chairlift that you see kind of tucked in the back corner of that and just have an elevator there. We're working through options. This is kind of among the more recent discussions that we've been having. But like I said, it is already budgeted and it has been the whole time. So we're trying to find a better solution for you. Back at the Science Wing edition, again, utilizing some language that Wilson School District has adopted as mottos or something like that, to, again, help with the wayfinding and theming of the building. And I think that's it for the rendering. Oh, no. You'll recall I mentioned that at the one location at the 6th grade, one at 7th grade, and one at the 8th grade, opening up the hallways to have kind of a breakout space for small group discussion and activity. Again, kind of having a striking wall on the one side, and we can put up marker boards like translucent or clear marker boards over that for writing surfaces in these areas as well. The other kind of paradigm shift that we're working through right now is whether to sprinkler the building, and our recommendation is 100% to sprinkler the building. It is currently not entirely sprinklered. It has a limited area sprinkler system that's largely for storage spaces. As a result of that, all the corridor walls are supposed to be 1-hour fire partitions. Now, when you have a 1-hour fire partition, that wall is supposed to go from the floor up to the roof deck or floor deck above you. Looking above the ceilings, most of the walls in the original part of the building are not finished from like the top 2 feet. So what that means is, in part, we'd have to go back and finish them off, the rest of that 2 feet. But I think what makes this more challenging, that part in and of itself is not, terribly difficult to overcome. But what makes it more challenging is there are a lot of different conditions that you would have to address when you're doing that. So is the wall immediately under a beam? Is it under joists going the other way? Are there conduits above it, as you can see here? Is there wiring? Things like that. You'd have to catalog all of those different things and fire stop that top edge where it meets all of those things. And being a large existing building with a lot of uncertain conditions, we can survey the heck out of it and try to get 95% of those. We won't be able to find them all, and that's probably, a likely candidate for change orders. The other thing is like I mentioned, all those walls need to be fire partitions. Every ductwork penetration has to be rated as well. That means fire dampers. All of our new doors, new windows need to be fire rated. All of that goes away by sprinklering it. So we went back and looked at what is our actual scope in this project, what are we looking to do, and so after months of honing that in, we found that there is some extra money in the project to offset that cost. And then we also went and took this fee schedule from Spring Township to check on the costs of permitting now that we have a more defined scope. And basically where we landed is we are at $80,000 additional from when I last presented to you to sprinkler it. And what you get is a much better building for it. You'll get a building that is perceived as safer. It will be safer. It's a sprinkler building. So to us, that is a home run. We'll be able to expand your glass, more daylight. So there's a lot of great reasons to sprinkler it, and that's where we're leaning. I will also say one other thing. You'll recall at the Lincoln Park site, we got low pressure readings or low flow readings. We are evaluating that, but so far we don't have reason to suspect that will be an issue here. The water service was upgraded to this site 10 or 15 years ago, I believe, and the initial findings is we should not need a booster pump, but we do have the flow tests upcoming to confirm. If that were to come back and find that we would need a booster pump, we'll probably revisit this discussion. So this being an occupied building during construction means we're going to have to phase this out. So we have a plan set forth for that, set up in 3 phases. First, starting with the additions. So by bringing the addition on board first, that gives us swing space to have as classrooms available while they move through in the subsequent phases to renovate existing parts of the building. So phase 1 is, of course, upstairs and downstairs, a new addition. It also includes that new classroom addition, I should say, and then it also includes the administrative addition as well at offset start times so that you have, your building entrances and exits that you need until the summertime. And then phases 2 and 3 would largely take place during, phase 2 especially during school years, starting with the downstairs and then the second half of the year upstairs renovating those classrooms. So phase 2 downstairs is top right, phase 2 upstairs is the bottom right in these diagrams. And then phase 3 would largely be summer work. The idea that those are largely wide open spaces. It'll be the last summer before the project is completed, and they should be able to have all of their mechanical equipment purchased and on site ready to go to hammer those out over one summer's time. So looking at how timeline is shaping out, I mentioned to you that the addition of the parking lot is requiring us to get a little bit more information on water infiltration. So we need that testing before we can update our plans and send our response back to the administrative review for Berks County Conservation District. So we need that to happen before we can ship it back to them. Hopefully, once that happens, we'll get their approval and it'll move on to the technical review, which is that long duration time that we've talked about before. So we really want to get them on the clock as soon as possible. This was the schedule that K&W gave us earlier in the year. So you can see we're kind of right at the beginning part of that technical review time. That's in the bottom half of the chart, the long red duration there. That's the Conservation District's technical review. So we're kind of getting into that time period, so we really want to keep that moving. But beyond that, we're largely tracking where we anticipated. The Planning Commission has been great to work with. They want the additional parking lot, so we're amending it for that. But otherwise, we have one zoning requirement that we're seeking relief from, and that's the building on the windmill side encroaching on the setback distance. They were very responded favorably to that, so don't see any issues there. That will be going to the zoning hearing board in the next few weeks too. So this is the budget where we stand today. So this reflects the additional plus minus $80,000 to get that sprinkler system in. So you will recall from our diagrams, the green, yellow, red, so on and so forth, that's where we establish the cost for all the different levels of renovation. So on the left side, lines 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all the renovation areas. Line 7 is the new construction cost. So we have costs attributed to all of those different levels of renovation and the square footage contained within. Then, of course, we have a line for site work. And then furniture and equipment that's included as well as part of the project. That includes things like the elevator, acoustical paneling, so on and so forth. And then, of course, escalation factors, knowing that there is a time duration between today and the theoretical midpoint of construction and that's the point when contractors are preparing their numbers off of, because they're not necessarily ordering everything on day one. So that escalation is a factor into this as well. So the bottom line on the left side is the anticipated estimate for bid day for the project. So that's $44.483 million. And then there's related costs to the project as well that follows that. That include your permitting fees, professional design fees, the geotechnical work, everything else along those lines, and then, of course, leaving an allowance for furniture purchases after that. So that puts the estimated project costs between $48.1 and $53.1 million all in. Okay, so where we stand as far as the overall project duration, of course, this includes the Lincoln Park project as well. We know that that's on hold pending some additional information from the kind of second opinion for the geotechnical. But on the bottom half of that is the Southern Middle School duration. So we're roughly at about 8 months out from when we anticipate bidding this project. So from a design standpoint, I think we are in very good shape to have everything ready to go, probably a couple months in advance of that. So we have a little bit of design float time. Really the critical path to this, as I mentioned before, is getting that approval from the Berks County Conservation District. So that remains our critical path, and hopefully getting construction activity underway at the beginning of, or sometime in the summer of 2025. We are, like I said, I just want to hammer it home, cutting it close to being able to deliver a complete building before the end of summer 2027. This one's on the tight side of the timeline. So looking ahead as far as your involvement, October 21st, as Dr. Trickett mentioned, would be having your authorization for us to proceed in construction documentation phase. That's the final phase of our design effort before we were to bid the project. We'll be presenting to you periodically over the coming months as the project moves forward to give you updates, maybe give you some more renderings and exciting things to look at. And then late spring 2025, you will be voting to authorize this project to go out to bid. Should you elect to do that, bids would be received probably 5 to 6 weeks after that point. And then you would take up another decision point on whether to award contracts. And then should you award, again, summer 2025 is when construction would begin. I will say we're not getting into Lincoln Park too much, but we will, of course, have kind of a parallel track for that as well, and we'll continue to advise you as that moves forward too. And then what we're doing over the next several weeks and months, we'll be meeting with the faculty one final time to make sure they're happy with the room layouts. Our test pits for that additional parking lot, we'll be doing them and resubmitting to BCCD. Getting that technical review on the clock, that's very critical. Continue with Spring Township and the Planning Commission, and we'll continue into documentation, construction documentation, presume your election to do so. That's all I got.
I'll start with just a quick question of something that has recently been added with the issue of the sprinklers. And this may not necessarily be for you, Sean, but you might also know, do we have any other buildings that are sprinkled, like that are full sprinkle systems?
I would imagine West is. It would be hard to do that building without sprinklering it.
Well, and I was thinking, I don't know in all new construction, but in a lot of new construction, that's something that's required, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any new building, we are sprinklering it pretty
Yeah.
much.
So not that we're doing an entirely new Southern, but almost, right? Like down to the bones in a lot of areas. So, okay. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. To me, sprinklering it is, assuming that the flow tests come back as we expect them to, home run move.
I mean, for $80,000, I mean, the sin of the past of no windows or lack of windows in Southern for $80,000 for the next 50 years to have more light in that building, I believe is well worth it. Does our insurance go down at all if we have sprinklers? Are there any savings there?
It's definitely something for us to look into. I'm not sure, but I know one of the pieces we did speak about, in addition to what Mr. Dowdy presented, was that hopefully a sprinklered building is even a little more desirable to our contractors, a little bit less of uncertainty regarding what's behind walls and above ceilings. So we definitely, as a team, including in that obviously is Mr. Simcox, believe it is absolutely the right decision. Allows us to open up areas more, bring in more natural light, and we'll see that reflected in the final presentation that Sean does.
Yep.
For the schedule, is there any movement of students at all outside of the building, or is that all self-contained under the roof?
As far as will kids be
Moved out of the school
yeah,
during
so those are
construction?
pieces we have to tackle. Looking at those phases and looking at the number of classrooms that would be needed and considering our growing population of middle school students, we just added 2 additional classrooms this year. We're going to have to get creative on where those kids are going to go in multiple
Yeah.
phases there.
There's opportunities there as well. In the phase 1, for example, you know where the auxiliary gym is? What do you use that for? Wrestling specifically, I think?
During the wrestling season, yeah.
Consideration to be taken to, splitting that up into a couple classrooms for temporary basis as swing space while other spaces are under construction.
I would just say from my experience so far with the Performing Arts Center that these are the stresses that the kids and our parents and our teachers are going to feel. So we're going to come up with a solid plan, we're going to execute the plan, but teachers and kids and families have to live and function in these environments. So we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to change our mindset in some areas and have classrooms that we're not used to having. There might be some sharing of classrooms that we don't typically do. But the result is worth it. The end result is going to be worth it. And our team at Southern, and as well as support from our team, will come up with a really solid plan.
And then my last question, the $14 million for the HVAC, that's if we did it by itself. So, I mean, if you took $14 million off that price tag, or
Theoretically speaking, yes, that roughly gives you an idea of what the balance of the work is costing.
okay. No, it looks good. Thank you.
Welcome.
And I just wanted to thank you, Sean, for taking your time with explaining everything to the board, as well as the renderings. I think kind of gets us a little more, personally, it gets me a little more excited. Not that I'm not excited about the project itself, but the renderings kind of give it a little more personal touch, and actually, like, we can visualize what the changes will be now. I think that was really a nice touch. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for your work on that.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. Okay, our third communication piece is a finance presentation by Raymond James and Associates.
So I'd like to welcome, if it's okay, President Cocker, Ally, Scott, and Mike are all here. It looks like Scott's going to be doing the majority of the speaking here. We've met all 3 of them before. They make up part of all of our financing and lending team, representing 2 different firms that are here. Tonight, they'll be presenting some different options for the board to consider and how we're going to be paying for these projects.
Great. Clicker for the slides. Oh, you got it? Perfect. Was wondering where that was coming from back there. So good evening. I too will be trying and keep brief this evening. I know a lot of the slides you've seen from us before. Slide 2 gives a little bit of a snapshot of some of the things that we've done here over the last several years. The most important is the bottom of the page. As we shifted gears on the first financing, you can see that bond issue, third column from the right, is sitting there to yield from the bottom of the market at 1.22%. So literally at the bottom of the market, we had to kind of roll with the punches of a delayed project. And so we were able to come to you with an idea and an opportunity to invest those dollars that are sitting in the construction fund and be able to keep the interest earnings in that fund. And so when we invested in what are called tax-exempt demand deposit slugs, that created an opportunity for the district. Really, the magic here is the far right-hand column. It's produced just over $1.1 million of additional dollars to be used for projects. So we think that's a pretty valuable idea, and it's really partly what we're here to talk about this evening in terms of another idea that the market is presenting to you to take advantage of the current rate environment. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this chart. It's a historical perspective, or in the shape of the yield curve. We've all been hearing on the news about the Fed starting its endeavor to lower short-term interest rates, which means those investment rates are going to start going down. We've created a new slide, if you want to go one slide forward, since the last time we were together, that gives you, I think, a pretty good picture of what's been happening with interest rates over the last year. The top line is where rates were a year ago. The market has a really good way of anticipating moves by the Federal Reserve. Largely, as the Fed has been taking on inflation, it's been worried about not only inflation, but the jobs market and the economy ultimately slowing. And the hope is, we've all been hearing about a soft landing. The Fed wants to have a soft landing. And now as we left the office today, we're talking about possibly no landing at all. So they keep coming up with these funny terms. But a year ago, you can see rates were much higher as the markets kind of anticipated those moves by the Federal Reserve and the economy slowing. You can see where we were on the lower blue line. We've moved almost 100 basis points, or a full 1% lower. But the interesting fact from this chart is the dotted line is where we were the day before the Fed cut 50 basis points a few weeks ago. And actually that day, the market went up about 15 to 20 basis points across the entire curve from that point in time. What's happened? We got a good jobs number on Friday, and now the expectation is we're not going to have this landing. And that thing, the economy is doing a little bit better, and it will do better because the Fed has lowered interest rates and will continue to lower interest rates. So, again, I don't have that crystal ball we've been talking about. I have a crystal ball that shows me what rates are going to be tomorrow. I don't have the crystal ball that's going to show me what rates are going to be 6 or 12 months from now. But the hope is that your timing is good here. Another historical interest rate chart. The takeaway here is that rates are higher than what they are today 73% of the time. And so even though we've moved off of the bottom of the pandemic lows where rates were 0, historically speaking, we are still at a very, very attractive time to be thinking about funding these projects. This page takeaway is the idea that we're bringing to you is to take advantage of short-term interest rates are still in a place where you can borrow the money and put the money in the bank and reinvest it and earn the dollars and keep the dollars, most importantly. And so the IRS, there's several different tests and rules that we need to play by. If you were to issue debt today and meet a spend-down test, there's 3 different spend-down tests. But the IRS also says if you issue less than $15 million in a calendar year, you don't have to meet any of the spend-down tests. You can simply put the money in the bank, wait for construction to start next year, and phase out over the next 2 or 3 years, and you don't have to worry about spending it on a certain timeline. You can simply borrow it at today's roughly 3.3%, put it in the bank and earn 3.65, 3.7%, and you get to keep those interest earnings and use it towards project costs. To give you an example, page 7, second column from the right, what that means to you is it's going to produce about $1.2 million, lower right-hand corner, $1.2 million of earnings over the course of the construction fund that the architect has mapped out over 2026 and 27. We would wait to spend these dollars until the end. We would invest them and keep them invested. Real quick, this is your existing debt profile before we do anything. We've talked about this many times. The far right-hand column, column 10, is the existing what we call run rate for debt service. You have about $10.9 million in your budget for debt service. If you do nothing, you'll be out of debt in the year 2033. This sets you up, as we've talked many, many times here before, to have a great deal of flexibility to do the things you want to do with these projects and how you finance them and how you structure the financings. And so none of what we're talking about tonight is going to kind of back you into a corner from a decision-making process. You will still have a great deal of flexibility in terms of how we structure the debt next year when we get to that point. We'll just look at the first slide here very quickly. We know today, depending on project costs, that we can layer in the dollars needed for projects, and we can keep that run rate in your budget the same as what it is today. So no tax increase for the new debt. We can keep your run rate at $10.9 million out there in column 9. And we can do that regardless of what we're talking about this evening. And so column 3 is the 15 million that we're going to talk about now, and then we would come back next year and restructure some existing debt that helps us keep the $10.9 million run rate. So we're going to summarize in a couple slides. If you want to move forward, this is another option that if you choose to put some millage in place for debt service, that will help you and lower the overall interest expense over the life of the borrowings. And we'll talk about that on the summary page. So if you want to click forward, another one yet, one more. So you have several different options. The top of this page basically says that we've gone through a process to think about what is first the best structure for the debt. And just like your home mortgage, you can go to the bank and get a 20-year mortgage, a 25-year mortgage, or a 30-year mortgage. And obviously, a 30-year mortgage comes with lower interest, lower payments monthly, but comes with a lot more interest over the life because you've stretched out the debt for a longer period of time. Conversely, a 20-year structure, the payments are going to be a little bit higher, but you pay a little bit less over the life. There's another alternative structure that you've used many times here, which is called a wraparound structure. That's the best structure because it does a number of things for you. You can see in total payback, it's $107 million versus the $137 on a 30-year amortization. It comes at a lower interest rate, 3.55 today versus 4.04, and it comes with a shorter term of payback, 2038 versus 2044, 49, or even 2054. So all the metrics that we try and all the boxes that we want to check, that is the most efficient plan of finance, and that's what we would take you down that path for the subsequent borrowings. Then at the bottom of the page, we said, okay, again, not a decision for tonight, but at some point we will decide if you want to put any additional millage in place for these projects. The first base option is you can keep your run rate at $10.9 million and not have any millage impact for projects, or you could put a little skin in the game, so to speak, and take the run rate from 10.9 million to 11.4 million. The obvious things that come to mind would be that it saves you a lot of interest. And so the various options that we just kind of quickly scrolled through, in terms of total payback on the $10.9 million run rate, $233 million. But if you went to 11.4 million in your run rate in your budget, it saves you almost $10 million of interest over the life. So there's 100 different iterations in between 10.9 and whatever you choose. Again, we don't need to make that decision tonight, but those are the things we want to be mindful of as we plan for these projects. So with that, from a timeline perspective, I think the expectation is we would come back with a parameters resolution at the meeting on the 21st. We're kind of working towards being prepared for that. That would just be for the first $15 million financing that allows you to take advantage of those current short-term reinvestment rates still being attractive and also the current borrowing rates being attractive. And that's really the seed money for any of these projects that you're thinking about over the next 12 months. So with that, try to be brief. I'm going to take some cues from Christine. We've seen her make some presentations recently where we want to start putting some what do you call them, puppy dogs and babies and puppy dogs in our presentation to be a little bit more appealing. So the numbers, the spreadsheets are hard sometimes. So I'll answer any questions that you might have.
I had a question about whether the logic of waiting because the Fed has signaled they're going to continue lowering rates to get it at a lower rate versus what we might make in interest on the investment.
Yeah, so the opportunity that exists today is because the Fed has only started lowering short-term rates. And so we want to take advantage of the fact that we can borrow today at rates that, as you've seen from that one chart, have already moved lower by 100 basis points. So you're getting an attractive borrowing rate, but short-term rates are still positive and creating an opportunity for you to put the money in the bank and earn over $1 million of interest that you can use towards the projects. We would say that the borrowing of the $15 million today takes advantage of the market that we know and the interest earnings today. It also hedges some of your interest rate risk in that if you're looking to borrow $50 or $60 million this time next year and do the restructuring, if rates are higher, you've won by taking $15 million off the table if rates are the same. But if rates are lower, you win. And so it's just hedging a little bit of your rate risk and also putting over $1 million of interest in your pocket. So we think it's a a good opportunity to get started on the financing process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a question on the wraparound. So our debt service now is out till 2033, that's 9 years from now, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Your
so-
existing debt goes out to 2032 and then drops off to 2033.
So then, the wraparound you had out till 2038, which is another 5 years?
If you want to go to the first, so
Was that, and I'm just curious, if you do the wraparound to 2038, is that assuming 10.9 run rate on the debt?
yeah, so this first $15 million piece is envisioning that we will get to the restructuring in column 4 and 5, and then the new money in column 6, once you know the scope of the project, would be wrapped around it. So you can see in column 3, the first $15 million gets wrapped around in years 2034 through 2039, actually 38 and a little bit in 39. The restructuring moves money out to keep the restructuring at 10.9. But again, right now, there's no budget impact in column 3 because the interest earnings would cover the impact that would be in your 24-25 budget and the 25-26 if you needed it before you got to the restructuring. But I think where you're going with that, the ultimate wraparound term, assuming a $75 million borrowing, takes you all the way out in the green column, column 6, to 2045 and a little bit in 2046, if you kept your run rate.
So that's not a full, all-encompassing wraparound for the 2038?
No, the 2038 is just for the first 15 million.
Gotcha, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The wraparound on the summary chart, if you want to flip forward to the summary chart, so the wraparound maturities at the bottom are 2046, 45. You get a slightly shorter amortization to 2044 if you were to take your run rate from 10.9 to 11.4. So at the top of the page, that was just to look at a pure, what the best structure would be without any thinking about restructuring of the debt. It was what was the best structure for the borrowing. And then when you think about adding in and layering in different run rates at the bottom of the table. We first wanted to prove out that the wraparound was the best structure.
And again, the example you're showing there is on an estimated total new borrowed of 75 million, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so again, those are all estimates along with projected
Right.
interest rates and, yeah, so
Yep.
it's
Yep,
just
exactly.
estimate placeholder right now.
Correct.
Okay.
And just so I'm sure I understand, the alternative is to do this or not to do this and wait to do the entire financing at one point.
Correct. Right. So with many of the large projects that we're working on for other districts, the interest rate opportunity that's presenting itself, because you know you have these other borrowings coming next year, is to take advantage of the first 15 million because the IRS says borrowing 15 million or less in the calendar year is the magic test in their book. But yeah, the alternative is to wait until next year, not knowing where both reinvestment rates are next year. They're probably going to be lower because the Fed has said we're going to lower short-term reinvestment rates. But we don't know where borrowing rates are going to be this time next year. They could be higher, they could be the same, they could be lower. And the chart that we share with you is a lot of things affect the borrowing side of the house. We know the Fed lowering rates, that kind of moves and the market expects those moves. The long end of the curve is largely driven by expectations for inflation. And so the market will be way ahead of, and is already way ahead of, if the Fed lowers rates, the economy will turn and do better. And what comes with a better economy is generally inflation 2, 3, 4 years down the road. The long end of interest rates will move up as it starts to think about those things down the road. Short term, we know the Fed's going to lower rates to help the employment numbers and to help the economy. We have no idea where the long end of the curve is going to be 12 or 18 or 24 months from now. We know they're favorable today. They've already moved 100 basis points lower. So it's a good hedge on borrowing rates and reinvestment rates.
And this may be more a question for Mrs. Schlossman, but if we did not borrow this money, how long until we would have to borrow money? Because my understanding is timing is the issue right now in terms of this.
It's an opportunity.
What you're stating is it's an opportunity. So if we did not do this now, if we decided for some reason we didn't, at what point do we have to borrow money to move forward? Like, what's our timeline?
Well, our 21C bond, as we are projecting, would have about $15 to $17 million left over from the Performing Arts Project to fund the beginning of Phase 2, which we have already been paying for, as Mr. Dowdy came up to the podium and explained all of that work that they've been working on, we have been paying for out of the 21C bond. So some of that money has already been spent. So as we keep paying the architects and as we keep going through the different phases, more money is going to be required. So for me to say exactly when that's going to be, I'm not sure, but we would definitely need the money when we're putting shovels in the ground, we're going for bid, we then know what we need. But at that point, you know, we have already been needing the cash. So in my mind, the $15 million is another layer of seed money, gives us the flexibility of watching the market when we're going out for the extra 60. We're not cash strapped at that point because we have not only the leftover from 21C, we have this $15 million in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, you hit the nail on the head, is that if we have the seed money left over that's sitting in the tax exempt investments, this first 15 million, this time next year, and we would be constantly updating the board on interest rate changes between now and next summer, but kind of like dollar cost averaging in your investments, this is kind of, you're taking advantage of the current market. If the market this time next year is showing that rates are moving in your favor, you've bought yourself some time because you have two pots of money that will get you through the first early stages of construction. Conversely, we would come to you if we saw rates getting away from us and going up, we would say maybe you want to take advantage of borrowing sooner because of the move we've already seen with lower borrowing rates. So you're trying to hedge a market that we know today with a market that we don't know this time next year. You know, we only, again, that crystal ball is kind of cloudy for next year, but it's a good planning opportunity that the market's presenting you at the moment. I felt like you were going to ask another question.
Okay. Right, yes, yeah, right, we have 2 weeks of ability to think through it too, because the vote won't occur till next meeting.
And just level set, so we have, I mean, if we would borrow $15 million, we have between $30 and $32 million for Southern, which we just got a price tag of about $52 million or something around there. So we're about $20 million short yet, but it'll get us to the lump. And we've all agreed that Southern it's a 100% pretty much a go. Everyone is behind improving Southern. No question there, right?
Well, I think the other point you could add to that is kind of what you brought up earlier. Even if something catastrophic were to happen in the economy, it sounds like we would absolutely have to do an HVAC renovation at Southern for $15 million. You know, I spoke out earlier. So even if something catastrophic were to happen and we would not move forward with either project, you'd still have to pay for HVAC. I think we've already determined that. So that would at least cover that.
I guess just from the public perspective, because we've been at this and many boards before us said Southern is a priority for the district. We are going, I mean, there's no question we are moving forward with Southern. I think the additional elementary school, though, with the extra dollars, I don't know, it's worth a conversation on how much we want to mortgage the district, you know, to 25, 30 years, or I don't think people want the taxes to go up for added debt. So it's, I think, yeah, $15 million for Southern, great idea. Let's, you know, potentially move forward with that. But I think, I'm glad we're separating these two to say, let's do Southern, and then the elementary schools.
Yeah, that's how I do it. I mean, there's several more inflection points and votes to come about moving forward with bidding, accepting bidding, all that kind of stuff like that. So again, just like we did with performing arts, if for some reason something unexpected comes in with those, we would still, have this money to move forward with, just HVAC or whatever if necessary.
Right, and then in an earlier conversation, there may be potential things we need in the district 15, 20 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, that
Sure.
we want to make sure we're considering, so it's just,
Absolutely.
it's a lot of money.
And I think the one thing the district has done well for many, many years, prior to my time on the board, is, if it's appropriate to restructure debt at any time for whatever reason, I think we've taken advantage of that and saved taxpayers money by doing that at appropriate times as well. So obviously we would still have the flexibility to do that, whatever that would be, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, no matter what.
Yeah, those are great points. And one of the things that we've been very mindful about is, again, as we've taken you through the rating process, looking at this project, and again, this first 15 million doesn't tie your hands with the decision-making process to whether it's a $10.9 million run rate or something other than that, in terms of impact or not. But it also puts you, if you were to move forward with that structure, where would you be in 5 or 7 or 10 years if there's another project that shows up on the radar screen? And when we look at your overall debt profile, and you fast forward to that place in time, you've not backed yourself into a corner in terms of your ability to afford another project down the road. I think that's really important for a district like Wilson that's always growing and doing things to keep its campus up to your standards. And so I feel like if you were to look at your debt profile, if you move forward with the entire $75 million of projects for both things you're considering, and you put that financing in the rearview mirror, if you looked at this debt profile as an example, in 10 years, you're going to have an equally short debt profile relative to your peers to take on another structure, whether it's a level debt structure at that time or another wraparound structure, but you will still have a flexibility. We think about, what's affordable, but also making sure you're not paying, again, within the limits of what we can do, is that you haven't jeopardized the future of the district and your ability to do the things you want to do. Keep your good rating, keep the other programs in place. Those are all things that we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about as we come up with the best structure for the district.
Okay, well, thank you for the robust discussion and all of the background information.
Yep.
We, again, the board has 2 weeks to kind of mull over the numbers and have, discussions, maybe questions to Mrs. Schlossman if needed, and we appreciate your time.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so because our communication section took a bit of time, I would like to request to see if there is a motion for maybe like a 10-minute 10-minute recess. And the motion for that? Dr. Kennedy? Thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider,
Mr. Schneider, thank you. We're going to have a short 10-minute. Oh, sorry, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, meet back here at 8:30. Thank you. Next on our agenda, solicitor's announcement, Ms. Ravitch? None, thank you. There is no public participation on agenda items. The board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters. Approval of minutes, I'm requesting a motion to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on September 16th, 2024.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you.
Second.
Mr. McCree as a second, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, this is a consent vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Payment of bills, Mr. McCray.
Yes, motion to approve the payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $4,415,114.07 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Do we have a motion for 3.1? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. Included in the report tonight, just like to highlight a few of our items. Number one, waiting very patiently. 3 of our new professional staff members are here today, so I'm going to ask you to stand when I call your name. Maggie Cuck, Jevin Lippincott, and Liz Tawigo. Thank you. Mrs. Burkholder helped me. Very much welcome you on behalf of the entire board to the Wilson School District. I've heard great things about most of you just through our different daily activities in our school. Some of you obviously have some history in our school district as well, which also leads to really positive reviews. So we're really excited to get all 3 of you on board and get you started here and just welcome you as a forever Bulldog. So congratulations after the board approves you in just a few short moments. A couple other items, you can go ahead and take a seat. A couple other items that I'm excited to bring attention to of the board and the community tonight. A couple child rearing leaves, so we wish both of them well in their maternity leave that's upcoming. And also under extracurriculars, it's kind of an extensive extracurricular part of the superintendent's report tonight. We have a variety of coaches, theatrical positions, music positions, as well as all of our advisors. And the advisors are actually linked down below in the agenda. Just want to highlight how much impact they have on our kids. We spend a lot of time, obviously, talking about a variety of different staff groups in our district, but I don't think we spend enough time talking about the impact that our club advisors, co-curricular advisors have every single day on our students. So just thank you to all of you that invest so much time after school and before school with our kids. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent's items 4.1 through 4.9 as presented.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
So officially welcome to the new teachers that are here this evening. And you may stay, but you do not have to stay, as this is already a strange structure for our meeting. Thank you. Next on the agenda, ratification, approval of the following field trips. 5.1, request approval of the following athletic trips. The high school competition cheer team traveling to Orlando, Florida on February 5th through the 10th, 2025, pending that they qualify. The cost of the district is 1 substitute teacher for 3 days and 3 days out of school for students. The high school baseball team traveling to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, March 14th through the 18th, 2025. Cost of this school district is 2 substitute teachers for 3 days. The students will be out of school for 3 days. Request permission, also the high school softball team traveling to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, same dates. Cost to the district is substitute teachers for one substitute teacher for 3 days, and the students will also be out for 3 days. 5.2, request permission to approve the trip to St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica for 22 high school students from January 10th to January 18th, 2025, 6 days out of school, and 22 high school students from January 31st to February 8th, 2025, 6 days out of school. The approximate cost of students is $2,400. Students will be chaperoned by Mr. Doms, Ms. Olson, Mrs. Houts, and one chaperone to be determined. Students will participate in a 9-day intensive marine biology program. They will be immersed in the local culture, and they also do humanitarian work at a local infirmary. And also 5.3, request permission to approve a trip to France for 15 high school students from April 10th to April 18th, 2025. The approximate cost of students is $3,885. The cost of the district is 2 substitute teachers for 4 days. Looking for a motion to approve field trip items 5.1 through 5.3.
So
Dr.
moved.
Kennedy, thank you. Oh, Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Mr. Case, second. Appreciate that. Any discussion? Okay. This is also a voice vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent items. Request to accept with gratitude the following donations from Dr. Stephen and Ms. Angela Chmielewski. The following items for the Wilson High School Gifted Education Classroom. Lutspot TAS 5 rolls of new filament, including PLA, ABS, and carbon fiber, and 1 desktop CNC mill with 20 bits and end mills. I don't know all of that lingo, but it sounds really interesting. So thank you to the Chmielewskis. Looking for a motion to accept with gratitude the donations.
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'll just remind, Dr. Chmielewski had been a former board member, and both of their children obviously went through Wilson and they excelled in multiple areas, including, I believe, in the gifted program. So it makes sense that they would give back, and big appreciation to them for doing so. Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 7.1, request to approve the updated job descriptions as attached. 7.2, request to approve the updated support staff compensation ranges as attached. 7.3, request to approve the personalized learning evening academy staff as attached. 7.4, request approval of the support staff longevity bonuses as attached. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources items 7.1 through 7.4.
Hart.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCree.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case.
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 8.1, request permission to renew a contract with Conrad Weiser Decision School for one special education student for the 2024-25 school year at a cost of $269.38 per day, beginning August 26, 2024, and ending June 3, 2025. 8.2, request approval to renew a service agreement with Laura Richardson, an independent contractor, to provide supplemental speech and language therapy services as requested at a rate of $75 per hour under the terms of the agreement as attached. 8.3, request permission to renew a contract with Capstone Academy for one special education student for 2024-25 regular school year services at a cost of $97,875 for the school year beginning 9/3/2024 and ending 6/12/2025. And 8.4, request permission to approve approve the MOU, sorry, in the one spot it wasn't approved. Request permission to approve the MOU with Special Olympics to add bocce as a unified sport alongside our current unified track program. Fees are covered through fundraising efforts by the club, and coaching stipends, in turn, are provided by Special Olympics. Looking for a motion to approve student service items 8.1 through 8.4. Dr. Kennedy, and do we have a second? Mr. Hart, thank you. Any discussion? Dr. Kennedy?
I'm super grateful that bocce is finally being added. I have a friend who's the bocce coach over at Governor Mifflin, and I heard it all last year that Wilson doesn't. So now Wilson's there. We're going to beat him.
Not, right, and of course, it's with Mifflin, so, yeah. So, right, not that we're competitive. But I would like to say that I think it was last year was their trial run of the unified sports, focused more on track events. And now this year, adding bocce because the program has been so successful. And just a reminder for our unified sports program, the goal is to have 50% of the students participating in special education programs and 50% of the students participating are in regular education programs. And they compete together. It's not, like, I think sometimes people think of some of our other programs where our regular education students are assisting and like physically helping our students with special needs. They're both competing side by side, and it's, they're teammates. So it's slightly different, and I'm really looking forward to see what the bocce program brings, and possibly, I don't know, bocce's such a fun sport. Maybe that will lend itself into intramurals and expand, I don't know. So, yes, very, very, very great opportunity for all students involved in the program. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question with regard to 8.3. With regard to this being a renewal, typically when these come up, we sort of do the approval for multiple years. Is there a reason why this one is just a renewal? Is this something we can avoid, or do we have to move forward with this?
So I'm not so sure about typically, Mr. Case. Typically, in recent memory, if it is this agreement for a particular child, it's often on a year-to-year basis. I'm just reading this. To renew, 8.3, to renew a contract with Capstone Academy. Again, Dr. Hoffert, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally this is a year-to-year agreement.
Well, we just did one a month or so ago, and it was for multiple
Mr.
years.
Case, I think you're thinking of a settlement agreement with a family. This is a tuition agreement directly with the school to place a child at that program.
Right, but for $97,000 for 1 year, I'm just kind of, is this something we have to do?
This, based on the IEP team's decision, this is the program that we felt was the most effective for that student.
And not something we can handle here?
Not something that we can handle in-house, no.
Okay.
No, based on the child's needs.
What would it take to handle this internally?
Creating a program specific to that child's needs that would specifically address the needs that are presenting.
Okay.
It's hard for me to go into a lot of detail, but there's a big difference between a settlement agreement that comes out of a negotiation with a family and an advocate versus a direct tuition contract with a school, which is what this is, and that's why it's a year-to-year basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion for student service items 8.1 through 8.4? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, 9.1, request approval of installation costs for the new ADA room signage in the lower house by Quality Awnings and Signs. 9.2, request approval of the G802 for the Wilson SMS construction project for K&W's additional services and associated excavation fees to evaluate and report on the test pits required for the additional parking lot needed to gain land development approvals with the township. And 9.3, request approval of the G802 for the Wilson High School construction project for K&W to renew the NPDES permit needed for the construction work to continue. Looking for a motion for operations items 9.1 through 9.3.
So moved, Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. McCree, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, and I'll just remind everyone the 9.2, I believe, is what Mr. Dowdy had discussed in relation to Southern and the additional parking spaces. Okay, no other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 10.1, request approval to accept a 2024-25 wellness grant in the amount of $2,300 from Capital Blue Cross to be used for staff wellness activities. 10.2, request to approve a proposal with Business Information Group to modify the district's online tax filing portal as attached. 10.3, request permission to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to sign an electricity supplier contract beyond 2025. And 10.4, request approval of the budget transfers dated June 30th, 2024, as attached. Looking for a motion to approve finance items 10.1 through 10.4.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Teaching and Learning, 11.1, request approval of the Athletic Training Student Internship Affiliation Agreement between Alvernia University and Wilson School District. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case.
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, 12.1, request approval of the purchase of a replacement for truck number 208 at a cost of $52,279 from Tom Misano Commercial Trucks under CoStars. 12.2, request approval of an addendum to the transportation agreement with Governor Mifflin School District as attached. And 12.3, request approval of the bus routes for the 2024-25 school year as attached. Looking for a motion to approve transportation items 12.1 through 12.3.
So moved.
Mr. McCree, thank you. Mr. Hart, second, thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Robert, this is the one that
So my understanding is there was a typo in this, and it's been corrected, but it hasn't changed the terms of the agreement.
Okay, thank you. Do I need to change the motion that was made?
This is the change, right?
What?
This is the corrected.
On 12.2, no, it has not been corrected. That is still the incorrect. The agreement has all the correct information on it.
Okay. What's incorrect about the description?
It's $260 per day, and it results in a $65 increase to the service cost.
And that is the correct agreement then that's attached?
It is in the agreement, correct.
So when the minutes will reflect that it should be 260 when the minutes are approved.
Correct.
You're voting on
Yes.
260.
Okay, so the information in the public content, both values were just $5, not just, but were $5 lower than the actual amount in the contract. Okay. Do I need to rephrase any motions? Okay, in that case, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Early Learning, 13.1, request acceptance of additional grant dollars for the Pre-K Counts program in accordance with the PA-approved budget. Seems pretty easy, right? Yes, please, we will take money. I'm sorry. Okay, looking for a motion for 13.1.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. And Mr. McCree is a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under extracurricular, 14.1, request approval of the New World Players after-school elementary music program. 14.2, request approval of a contract with Market Street Sports and Elite Fire and Water Restoration for the sponsorship of the concession stand at Gursky Stadium for $8,000 a year for 3 years. And 14.3, request approval of a contract with Market Street Sports and Performance Toyota for the sponsorship of the field at George Mack Stadium for $10,000 a year for 3 years. Looking for a motion to approve extracurricular items 14.1 through 14.3.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Mrs. Denny.
I was with some high school friends this weekend, and one of my friends had commented on the increase in the number of signs that we have in our stadiums. And I said yes, that it was a new program. But this particular friend's children have graduated quite a few years ago, and I got to share that we had cut in half the student fees for participating in activities, and that things like this enable us to help our students participate at a lower cost and still keep a budget. And so my friend was I would say was impressed, but she was more excited that the signs were really a sign of something really positive happening at the school. And it's good for the companies. So I just want to share that because I imagine there's other people like my friend that see these going up and are like, why do we have signs everywhere? And this is why, because it helps our students, and that's our ultimate goal. So thank you to these companies that are helping our students move forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Denny. Any other discussion for extracurricular items? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. McCree,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mrs. Denny,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Could I just ask one question? I know it's after the vote and everything. I mean, just from the naming rights perspective, if we were going to name a stadium, you know, at what point does the board get involved, or is this sort of, do we lose our, can you kind of explain the procedure if someone would want to name something large? You know, do we lose that right to say no, or is this, you know, it's out of our hands at this point?
Well, no,
Because
it's
my
not.
vote's a no if it's.
Yeah, it's not, nothing's out of our hands. I mean, everything would come before the board as we're presenting it currently. Mrs. Troutman, there are certain things that are on the table, things that are off the table.
Yeah, so we met with Market Street Sports and talked about the various areas that are available for sponsorship. The only thing that would be left that would be at probably at this higher level would be the gymnasium. That would be the only thing that would be left.
So we gave our rights away for, they can just name to the highest bidder a stadium, say, of,
There's no stadiums up, there's no stadiums.
okay.
No, the stadiums are already have names on them. George Mack Stadium, Gursky Stadium.
But
Yeah,
like the
they're-
middle
those-
schools or something like that.
So they're not part of the current Market Street Sports package.
Okay, thank you.
Currently.
Okay,
That is correct.
perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
And I do think it's an opportunity, if it's okay, just to follow up to Mr. Case's question. We're working through a revision of a policy to bring before the board. I know we have a few policies on tonight for first reading, but one of those policies we are working through is the naming rights to our facilities policy. So within the next couple of months here, the board will have the opportunity to provide some input and feedback, and hopefully adopt a new policy and some procedural regulations that go along with it. And that's currently being reviewed by John's office.
I think probably George Mack Stadium is a perfect example, because you're not changing the name of that, you're effectively putting a sign up there, so it's still George Mack Stadium. But so you're not, the Market Street package was never part of the naming rights, which Chris is referring to, which is an actual specific school policy, which you currently have, you're just revising it.
Okay, just, thank you for the clarification, just wanted to make sure.
Any other discussion? Dr. Kennedy? No? Okay. Okay, that takes us to our policy readings. These are all first readings, so they will not be voted on for another 2 meetings. However, I think it's important to note that we will be seeing a large number of policy revisions coming through. It feels like a dream and yesterday that Mr. Hart and I started on revisions about 7 years ago with the policies. And so we appreciate whoever is taking the brunt of that work right now, because it is neither of us. But a lot of revisions are coming specifically from PSBA as well, just that we need to update things because it has been 7 years since we started that process, and things change. So the first readings for 218, student discipline, 222, tobacco and vaping products, 805.1, relations with law enforcement agencies, and 806, child abuse. Miscellaneous, we have an election for the PSBA officers. So we have under PSBA officer elections, president-elect for 1 term, Sabrina Becker from Franklin Area School District. And remember, this is all over Pennsylvania. Vice president for 1-year term, Matt Vanoy from Sharon City School District. From the position of Eastern Zone Representative, which is a 3-year term, Holly Arnold from Tunkahunk area. What is that? Tunkhannock? Okay. Where is that? Oh, well, it's near Tawana. Well, there, okay. Tunkhannock area, Tunkhannock. PSBA Insurance Trust trustees, Nathan Maines, Richard Frericks, and William Lakoff, and then the 2024 through 2026 Forum Steering Committee, Mary Doherty and Betsy Gates. Any slated candidate that demonstrates exceptional leadership at the local and state level shall be considered for endorsement by the nominating committee, and the determination shall be noted on the slate of candidates, which I believe is asterisk next to any of their names. So, Mr. Maravich, I just motioned, we don't have to do anything.
Oh, for this?
Yes, for the
Yeah, you made a
officers.
motion a second.
Okay, so a motion to accept the following officers as our Pennsylvania School Board officers, nominees. Looking for a motion.
Denny?
Mrs. Denny, thank you, and a second.
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion?
Who vetted these people?
Well, they volunteered, right?
I will say, and I might be wrong about this year, but normally there are no other people. Like, this is, I think there was a few years, maybe just before COVID, maybe during COVID, where there might have been people running against other people, but I think for the most part, this is it. Like, there's one nominee, so.
I can speak to Richard Frericks. He was a college professor of mine at Millersville University, an amazing person, served on the school board at Penn Manor School District for many, many years. So, however, Mr. Case, he's the only one that I can vouch for.
Mrs. Cocker, I did want
Yes.
to let you know that all of these positions are they're unopposed. So for the Insurance Trust trustees, there are 3 positions.
Okay,
And for the
excellent.
Forum Steering Committee, there are 2 positions. So
Excellent.
all of these are unopposed.
That makes it a lot easier. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs.
What I was
Burkholder.
trying to say.
Okay, so in that case, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the nice people who are volunteering for these positions? Okay, roll call, please. Nope.
It's a
It's
consent
a
vote.
consent, sorry.
Voice vote.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to the PSBA officers. That takes us to our own committee reports. So, BCTC, Mrs. Casper.
I have no report.
Thank you. BCIU and Curriculum Committee, Dr. Kennedy.
Yes, I have a curriculum committee update. I'm sorry, I have a BCIU update, but I am going to pass it off to Mr. Schneider for the curriculum committee. But the BCIU recognized Jay Worrell as the 2024 BCIU Outstanding Community Partner. He is from the Helping Harvest Fresh Food Bank, and under his leadership, they have fostered meaningful partnerships with schools, and the food bank has provided critical support and resources to students and their families. On September 10th, Berks County middle and high school students had the opportunity to hear Kevin Hines. He is a national recognized speaker and suicide attempt survivor. He shared his powerful story of hope and resilience, emphasizing the importance of mental health and human connection. The Berks County Committee on Legislative Action, COLA, set their priorities for the 2024-2025 school year. The state level priorities are school safety, including physical security and mental health grant funding, school security personnel requirements, and future funding for school security. Their other next priority is basic education and special educating funding, state mandates, charter and cyber schools, and tax equity. At the federal level, their priorities include special education, vouchers and school choice, E-rate and technology, and on the watch list for them is Title IX 2024 regulations. Project Search is an internship designed for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, helping them to achieve competitive employment. On Thursday, August 29th, the interns convened for a staff rally at the DoubleTree by Hilton Hotel in Reading. They delivered a presentation to the employees of the DoubleTree, offering insights into Project Search and introducing the interns that are currently employed there. Lastly, on the BCIU website, there are now videos that offer an opportunity to showcase what's going on at the BCIU, and they are under the Quick Connect on the BCIU website. And I'm going to pass off Curriculum Committee to Mr. Schneider.
Bless you. Thank you. We met last Wednesday and we discussed several things. First, we discussed, as required by Act 55, a universal screener, which one to go with. There was a discussion of AI use and creating a policy around the use of AI and guidelines for the Wilson School District. From the elementary side, as we voted on today, there was a proposal for an after-school music program, which I think is neat. And then we also learned about Southern's wet time at Camp Conrad Weiser before West's wet time at Camp Conrad Weiser. But whatever, the kids all seem to have a good time. My sixth grader went. He enjoyed it. So, and then when we talked about professional learning, we got some feedback on the keynote speaker who had presented to the district. We also talked about how student performance measures, which is a mandated thing for teachers, get tied into, along with their individual professional learning plans. And then lastly, we discussed changing the name from just the Curriculum Committee to Teaching and Learning Committee. So that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy and Mr. Schneider. Student Services, Mr. McCree.
No report.
Thank you. Berks EIT, Mr. Slasman.
Good evening. The Berks Tax Collection Committee met on September 26th. Calendar 2024 year-to-date through September, tax distributions to school districts and municipalities are trending favorably compared to the prior year-to-date. Earned income tax distributions are higher by $6.5 million, or 5%. Local services tax distributions are higher by $100,000, or 2%. And business privilege taxes are up $200,000, or 4%, over the prior year. The delinquent employer earned income tax prosecution program is continuing to be successful, with approximately $1 million in delinquent payments received, representing 89% of the charges filed. All those monies go back to the municipalities and school districts. The business privilege tax collection program continues to be strengthened, looking to hire an external auditor and possibly adding an online filing option. Our next quarterly meeting is in December, when we will be approving the calendar year 2025 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schlossman. Extracurricular Committee did not meet, has not met since our previous meeting, but will be meeting on October 14th, which is next Monday. And although it is no student day, the staff and teachers will still be here, so we will still hold our committee meeting. Noon upstairs. Takes us to Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Thank you. We have not met since our last meeting. However, I think everyone had enough of facilities today, unless we want to continue to talk about it. Just a quick note, the red iron, or really the structural steel, will start moving in next week to the Performing Arts Center. So that's going to start taking some structural shape more than it is right now. So looking to be under roof sometime December, January timeframe, and start finishing the inside. So it'd be great. There's a meeting next Monday, 4:30 p.m. in the Ops Building. That's my report.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Finance Committee, Mr. McCray.
Yes, we met earlier this afternoon, covered many agenda items. First off, the audit firm continues its work on the 23-24 budget year that's closed. As we reported earlier, we will end with a surplus as opposed to the budgeted deficit, and on an upcoming meeting agenda, we'll have recommendations for that surplus to likely go to enrollment expansion, equipment purchase, and the capital reserve funds. We also looked at food services for last year, and last year for breakfast, we averaged about 360 more breakfasts per day and 300 more lunches served per day. So kudos to the food services for increasing student interest in our cafeteria meals. We also took a preliminary look at where we're going with the 24-25 budget. Again, as noted earlier, we received about $1.4 million more from the state than was budgeted due to the state approving its budget after we had to approve ours. That will also go to help toward reducing this year's current budgeted deficit. Finally, we began looking at revenue and expense trends that could impact next year's budget preparation. Again, a lot still to come there, but it's never too early to get started. And with that, however, we will have a recommendation, as has been our tradition for many years, at our next meeting, that we will opt out and not raise the rate of tax by more than the Act 1 adjusted rate index for the next school year.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Next, legislative, Mr. Schneider.
I had a report, but Dr. Kennedy pretty much already covered all the stuff from the COLA meeting, so I have no report.
All right, thank you. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
No report.
Thank you. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening, everyone. So Wilson celebrated homecoming last Friday night, and I just wanted to share all of the cool celebrations that happened over the weekend. So prior to the football game, we inducted 5 individuals into the Wilson Athletic Hall of Fame. So we went to congratulate our 2024 inductees, Pat O'Brien, Alexandra Rocket Miller, Brittany Smith, and Jesse Wallace. These outstanding individuals were also honored on the field during halftime. We would also like to congratulate our 2024 homecoming king and queen, Christo Hunsaker and Isabel Negrini. And then the celebrations continued at the Wilson Education Foundation's 10th annual Bulldog Bash. It was a privilege to recognize the Sun Federal Teachers of the Year, West Middle School teacher Natasha Palm, and recently retired Spring Ridge teacher Mary Plummer were both honored as Teachers of the Year. Both of these recipients were nominated by members of our community and then selected by a team from Sun Federal. and they both received $1,000, $500 from Sun, and then it was matched by the foundation, which was really great. Then we had the privilege of inducting our class of 2024 distinguished alumni. This year's outstanding recipients included Katrina Lewis from the class of 1988. Ms. Lewis is the Assistant Director of National Intelligence for Mission Performance Analysis and Collection at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. She also spent the day with us here at Wilson today. She met with our JROTC. She spoke to all of our AP government classes, and then we had the privilege of having lunch with her where she met with senior leadership, which was great. It was a great opportunity. One of the other inductees was Dr. Julie Upsall, who's a 2024 graduate. She is an emergency medicine physician, educator, and healthcare quality and safety expert. And then our final inductee was Mr. Matt Wolf from the class of 1993. Mr. Wolf leads a highly successful RE/MAX sales team and is a dedicated member of the Wilson community, giving back through volunteering and leadership, including this school board. So it was absolutely a great weekend to be a Bulldog. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman, for taking most of that for me. I would not have done it justice. But yeah, Saturday night was a great evening out at the Redner's Event Center at the Fightin' Phils, celebrating, the Education Foundation and the folks that commit themselves to our district each and every day. So great to go out and break bread with everybody. Thank you to all the attendees and all the supporters, donors. The auction is still open until October 11th. There's a couple of cool things on there. Taylor Swift has a signed guitar out there. There's vacations. There's a lot of signed memorabilia for sports. So check it out. It's online. You can navigate to it from the Wilson website. And just a big thanks to everyone who continues to support the Education Foundation. The foundation did have a meeting, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and there were a couple of presenters at the meeting. There was, Casey Trexler and Katie Rothstein came from the Youth Volunteer Corps of Reading, which is for an in-school program for at-risk seniors. It's basically a volunteer program that they want to discuss and provide that there may be some future opportunities here at Wilson to be involved. And then Galen Newman spoke about the Summer Learning Camp, which is a 6-week program that we have in the summer. And registrations open sometime around January of this year coming up, and it's a great program, and the Education Foundation does help sponsor that. So it's check it out. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report.
Thank you. Student outreach, tonight, Ms. Negrini is not available, so in her place is Ani Sharma. So take it away. We're happy to have you in her place.
Alrighty, thank you. So this fall, Bulldogs, we have had a extremely eventful as students. For the middle school and elementary schoolers, the 6th grade class from Southern and West went to Camp Conrad Weiser where they had a blast. These students learned so many valuable life skills and had the opportunity to spend 3 days outside in the wilderness. For the Wilson leadership and academics, on September 20th, we celebrated our Gold Out football game and also our Salute to Service football game, kind of mixed together. This was our inaugural Salute to Service game where we honored the veterans of Berks County. This was also our marching band senior night. Congratulations to the senior class for winning the Powder Puff game against the juniors. I wish it went the other way, personally, as a junior, but it is what it is. Last Friday, yes. Last Friday, we had our homecoming/pink out game, which was a wonderful night, which highlighted with the Wilson Hall of Fame induction and supported the Berks County Breast Cancer Support Services and celebrated our homecoming court, which his winners were Isabel Negrini and Krista Huntsinger. On Saturday, we hosted our homecoming event, which was great and awesome. We had 600 students show up, and it was probably one of the best homecomings we've had in a while, out of the 2 we've had in a while. Our Wilson athletics this fall season have been out of this world. Our girls water polo team won Beast of the East, so congratulations to them. Congratulations to our golf team for going undefeated with a 15-0 record, which is one of the most impressive records in a while. Congratulations specifically to Wilson Junior Kyla Quimbley for earning second place overall in the BCIAA individual golf tournament. Kyla will go on to compete in the districts for the third straight season, which will be held on October 10th and 12th. Congratulations to the girls' tennis team for their incredible playoff run. This is the first time in 6 years that Wilson has made it this deep into their playoff run. The Wilson football team also had an exceptional season. We beat our rivals, Governor Mifflin, as we always do, 43-20, and we also beat Hempfield last Friday, 38-14. Our arts departments have also had an eventful fall, with the Wilson Theater Company producing The 39 Steps and had 3 performances at the Yoakum Institute. On Saturday, September 21st, our marching band earned first place in their competition against Haverford, resulting in them leading their division. And that's about all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inaugural report. Mr. Maravich, do you have a report? No report. No report. Okay. And we have no public participation on non-agenda items. Any other business from the board? Mr. Hart.
Thank you, President Cocker. I just wanted to remind the community that on October 16th, rain date on the 17th, 16th being a Wednesday, the Spring Township Lions Club will be hosting its Halloween parade for the community, and our own Dr. Christopher Trickett will be our Grand Marshal. So come on out, enjoy the parade, and have some fun.
I'm looking forward to that, Mr. Hart, very much. Thank you for the Lions Club for including me. I'm being sincere, I am. Last time I was in the parade was with the Wilson Junior Soccer Club many years ago when my girls were little, so it'll be a very good night for me. I do want to go all the way back up to section 4 of the agenda, something that I did omit, I think in an attempt to move through my section quickly, was 4.1. And just want to real quickly highlight Kim Wilson, 34 years of service to the Wilson School District. Will be retiring at the end of the school year. And this continues that trend that we're seeing now in 3 different agendas where teachers are retiring and giving us with plenty of time to fill their positions. So just thank you to Kim. Thank you. Appreciate you being patient with me tonight and wait until the end of the agenda.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Kennedy.
I just want to say, I'm not sure if you're not in this community that you understand what the last 3 weeks have been like in this building. The football game where it was the gold out and the salute to service was like a slice of Americana that you will never see, and I don't think anywhere else. Like, it made me so proud to be a Bulldog and to be an American at the same time, and to see the World War II veterans and how proud they were and how they came out. Although I did wonder who let them drive the motorcycles across the new turf. I was thinking about you, Mr. Simcox. It made me a little nervous. That's all I kept thinking was Mr. Simcox allowed this on the new turf. But I mean, we should be so proud because most of the people at the football game do not have a child cheering on the band. Like the majority of the people there are community people that just live in the community, and it is such a community building school district. We do all the things, and the community comes out for us, and I think we go out for the community as well. And I just think the last 3 weeks we've just been absolutely, even more than normal, killing it. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to the coaches and the teachers and the support staff and the security guards and the parents that bring their kids out in the little bit of rain during the Mifflin game. And our stands at the Mifflin game were more crowded than the Mifflin stands. So, I mean, it just goes to speak to all of us. And I didn't even have a kid playing in that game. So thanks to the entire Wilson community for the pride that we show. Super proud of us.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Any other business from the board? That's a good one to end on. So, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, meeting adjourned.